Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. David Hooper, and today is a really special episode. I'm so excited to welcome Rob Sanders to the podcast. Rob is someone I've been desperate to get on the podcast since I started. Rob is a firefighter recognized with distinction. Rob has a background in personal training, was a Muay Thai fighter, is a crossfitter, an entrepreneur, an affiliated athlete, a mindset coach. There is so many knowledge bombs about to be dropped. And another part of this is that Rob and I go back a little way. Rob's a really close friend of mine. We've run businesses together. So I am so excited to hear what Rob has to say. Rob, welcome to the show, mate.
Cheers. I've missed your introductions that you used to give me. They've been awesome. But yeah, welcome. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully I won't disappoint the listeners, seeing as my name has cropped up on a few different episodes. So they finally get to meet me and find out I'm not as exciting as people seem to be making out.
That's a really good point, actually. I think you've been mentioned in like every other episode. You're a popular figure without even being on the podcast yet. So no, it's amazing to have you with us, mate. And I know that you're gonna really set the podcast alight. And the question I always like to start with is all about the podcast title. So the podcast title is obviously Unstoppable Introvert. But I'm really interested to know, what does being unstoppable look like or mean to you?
Question. I should know it's coming up because I listened to the episodes. Unstoppable to me. I think it's just something that we used to always talk about with clients is action. It's just someone that actually takes action on the things that they're going to say and do. As introverts, we like to wish that we could do a lot of things. I think probably fair to say. Like to take a little bit of action, then it gets a bit scary and we just kind of stop. So yes, I'd say unstoppable to me is someone that just takes action on the things that they say they're going to do, and they give it a go. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least you've taken a little step towards it. So yeah.
I love that definition, and I really want to unpick how we get to that point of taking action, and we'll dive into how you do that in a second. But for those people who are just meeting you for the first time on this podcast, how would you introduce yourself to them in terms of kind of who you are and what you do in a really brief overview?
Brief overview. So this is something that I've heard of. There's someone else, I love a podcast that I like, and he always talks about this. Everyone always introduces themselves as their job. Like it tends to be like, oh, who are you? Oh, I'm Rob. I'm a firefighter, resilience coach, Bristol City, and things like that. So that's like your job. But he used to say, well, yeah, but who are you as an actual person? So my one, I think I've been thinking about this for a while, and I would say I am, and it's the title of the film, A Nice Guy, because I wouldn't normally say it, but the amount of people that I hear, like backgrounds of friends and stuff like my wife said when she's met people that know me through the fire service when I've gone to different places and they've just gone, hear that you're the nice guy and things. So I've just taken it on and thought, well, you know what? That's how I'm going to introduce myself as. I'm just a nice guy. I'm a nice person. But yeah, ask questions you want a bit more than that. That's the simple one.
I love that, and I think that one of my heroes, DJ Dwayne Johnson, has this great saying of it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And I completely agree with you that you are definitely a nice guy, and I can vouch for you there for sure. And you're definitely also so much more than that as well, as we're going to dive into this. But yeah, I think that is definitely something that comes across from you, and it's one of the reasons that we are still hanging out and keeping in touch and things like that, because yeah, you're a top man. And I know also that you hate when you get any compliments or any love sent your way, so I can imagine the camera being flicked up at any point, so I will move on.
No, I hate it. Hey, I was about to say that. I was going to say it sounds really big-headed, going, "Oh, you're a nice guy" and things like that. But as you know, I can't stand. I think this is an introvert thing. Compliments and you being put on like a pedestal or anything like that, because obviously most introverts don't like attention, sort of around them and things. But like I said, I've been thinking about it for a while, ever since I heard it on someone else's podcasts, you're not your job titles. I was like, oh, well, what else would I say about myself? In short, just a nice guy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that you wrap your purpose around that job title or
Yeah,
you know what you're doing. And as you know with my story, when I got made redundant, that because I lost that purpose, it obviously sent me on the path that I had to go on. So I think it's a really refreshing, mindset to have. And what would you say to those people who do wrap themselves in their job title? And that is how they introduce themselves and they hide behind their job title almost. How did you get to that point of, saying, I'm the nice guy. Like, it doesn't matter what I do. This is much more important than what my 9 to 5 looks like.
yeah. It's a tricky one because I think we all do it. I've done it for ages as well. You get so involved in what it is that you're doing, and because it's such a big chunk of most people's lives, there's not
Yeah.
many people out there that have got jobs or doing things where they're only working a couple of hours a week and stuff like that. Like it is the whole life tends to be around the
Yeah.
job and the purpose. And like you said, when you lose it, you lose your job, you lose anything like that. There is a point of where you're just struggling. I've had it. Over the last few years and things, we're just financial difficulties, all those sort of things, and then you sort of don't know where you're going in life. And it always tends to be when people aren't happy with the job or they're just been made redundant, they're out of a job, and they're sort of like, oh, well, I don't know what my purpose is now. I don't know what it is. So for me, it's just trying to look at like your values and things like that. Try and look at you as a person. Who are you as a person, rather than what is my job as a person, and see what's important to you, and then kind of go with that. And one of mine is I like to try and be that person that finds the good in everyone. Always make a point, and it's something I've learned from my mum, is just no matter who the person is, no matter how annoying or whatever it is about them, it's trying to find something you can just get on with them about, so you can talk to them about. See, there's none of that kind of like, oh, I just don't like them, so I'm not going to bother trying. It's like, right, always try and make an effort and find something out there. And then that's a big part of my values, is just being nice.
This is what I'm talking about. Yes, this is what we're talking about. Fire being lit here. You said a couple of things there which are really interesting and I want to unpick. The first one was who are you? What do you mean by that? So if someone's listening and they're thinking, I don't know what that means, how can you figure out who you are as a person and what's important to you?
I think a lot of it is, it's kind of, I guess it's quite cliche with that whole, focus on yourself for a
Mm,
bit rather than focusing on everything else and like your external
yeah,
world and all those sort of things. Again, I know it's easier said than done. Anyway, for me, I'm a big believer in, obviously, well, same as you, with all the mindset work things, hence why we've come kind of down this path. I know when COVID hit for me and moving up here, big part of that was just, all right, I've got time, what am I going to do? Right, I'm going to focus on myself, focus on my training. Let's dive into some of this meditation stuff and breath work and kind of see where that goes. So I think that's a big part of it, is just focus a little bit more on yourself. Something I always say to clients and people I meet is, you're number one. You're head of everyone in your family, kids or whatever. And I get arguments about this. Doesn't mean you're going to go and steal the food off their plate and be like, no, I'm more important than you. It's just, if you're not your best self, you can't be your best self for everyone else, everything else that you do, and so on. So it's important to just focus on you as an individual. And like I said, who is that person? Whether it's using techniques like journaling. Journaling's a great one. I know you do it. We do it. It's saying that we used to tell clients to do a lot of. A lot of people do, and it's because it is a powerful thing. Just get those things out of your head and get them down. Sit there, put that as a title. Who am I? And just start
mm,
writing about yourself. And you'll guarantee you'll start seeing values and things that will start cropping up all over the place, and you can start picking them out and go, okay, that sounds a bit like me. And so, or in my case, with the nice guy thing, what do other people say about you?
mm.
Like, if you know that is, without walking around going, oh, what do you think of me? What do you think of me? Because not everyone's going to say a thing to your face, and a lot of people make jokes. I know I would about it. But again, it's that sort of thing. Like, what do people tend to say about you as a person? And you'll soon find out who you are.
Some really great advice, really great advice. And if you're listening, get that pad of paper out and do that practice. you're going to start to have some realizations pretty quickly. And the second part of that, which was I thought was really interesting, was you've got to that point of finding the good in everyone, I guess. That is hard. How did you get to that point?
Oh, see, this is a tricky one. It's something that I've kind of always done, and I've learned, like I said, I learned from my mum about this one because she's like it. There's people that me and my brother have always been like, oh, why do you still talk to them? Why do you still make an effort and things like that? And it's just because that's just the way she is. Like she gets on with people. She finds, like she says, she just finds something that she can get on with people and finds the good in them, and then just always wants to help and kind of be there for people and stuff like that. So I think it's just something of that kind of nature nurture. I've just learned it from nurture. Don't get me wrong, there's still people out there that are tough to sort of deal with and cope with, and there's people that I don't particularly like to spend a lot of time with, like because you might not particularly like their values and things as they are. But in terms of what I mean by it, if I'm in front of someone, and even if it's someone I know, I don't particularly maybe have the same kind of morals, beliefs, or sort of values as them, I'll find a way to get on with them so I can be in that room and have conversations and work with them if I've got to, and that sort of thing. Because there's nothing worse, I think, than going places and you can see people that just don't like someone, and it's just that awkward tension. It's horrible. It's horrible on each individual, everyone else around there. So it's like, well, just find something that you can just get on with someone about, and it just makes your life easier. It makes life easier to go through rather than hating on people. Yeah.
It 100%. It's a choice, isn't it? And it's easy to hate on people and to be nasty and have that side of your life. But if you do that little bit of work and just find that good, or the positive side, you end up having a much more fulfilling life as well. So
Yeah.
again, I think it's really good advice. And to switch things up a little bit then. So a lot of your background, which we're going to dive into, is fairly physical. You're very active. You're a beast, one of the fittest people I know, absolute animal.
Cheers.
Is that has that always been the case? So, like growing up, was that the case at school? Were you always like a high flyer in PE and all that sort of thing?
Weird one. So no, I was a chubby kid. Put it that way. Trying to use use terms that we can use nowadays. So no, I'm talking about myself. I was a fat kid. So I was chubby. I was overweight. Still quite good at sports, to be honest. I've never. I was gonna say I done that. I went to like district sports. I was swimming captain,
Mm,
things like that. I was quite good at running and like most things. I was always that quite good enough to go and compete, but I'd never be up like in the top, like one or two, or I'd always be
yeah.
like four or something like that. Had the ability and things there, but I think a lot of it, and again, and this goes straight back to that introvert stuff that we said. It's I have always have had a thing about getting to a certain level. A little bit of attention starts coming onto you. It starts getting a little bit trickier because you've got to push that little bit more. And I go, it's not for me, and change it up and do something else. So I was always fit into that fitness and sports. Like I said, I was a chubby kid. It wasn't until later on I started bunking off for school. If my mum listens to this, she's not going to be happy. With one of my mates, we used to go to his and just basically work out. He would be trying to put on muscle. I was trying to lose weight. And that's kind of what started the whole kind of gym thing. But up until that point, always really active and push the fitness and stuff like that. Same as my dad, same as my brother. And a lot of it was trying to, I guess, as my mum would say, trying to kind of prove something to my dad. But he was very sort of, we'd be like, look, I won this. And he'd go, oh, yeah. Well, I could do this. I could do that. And he was always better. So I think that might have stemmed from it somewhere. I think I've just had a little breakthrough there. That's why I get to a point where you go, no, I'm never going to be good enough. I'll stop there and sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that you're aware of that, and that it's something that Ed Milet talks about sometimes, where he says there's a what's the word? They call it a limit, like a limiter on your life, or like a
Oh, yeah.
temperature gauge on your life,
Yeah.
the temperature one, where say obviously if you're listening, you're not sure what I'm talking about, in a room, if it's too hot, you can turn the temperature down and it gets colder. If it's cold, you can turn the temperature up, it gets hotter, obviously. And that's the same with your life. And what that means is you subconsciously, if you're doing really well, turn the temperature back down to what you're used to when it gets scary, or when it's different, or it's starting to be a real challenge and things. You have the ability to turn that all the way up if you wanted to. So why do you think that is then? Like, or what's one way we can break through some of those barriers, or maybe you've broken through some of those barriers in the past?
It's taken a long time to get to that point. I think a big part of it for me was going down that coaching journey, that self-reflection, that kind of, like I mentioned earlier, that point of going, do you know what, I'm just going to work on myself for a bit, get a bit selfish and things like that. And that's when you started realising kind of the way you act or people act, because you're learning that little bit more. I know when we have a lot of chats, we tend to coach ourselves while basically just ranting at the other person, and then by the end of it you kind of go, well, that's the reason because of that, I'm going to reframe it this way. Done now, cheers mate. And then you're kind of off. So I think a part of it's that, probably as I'm getting a bit older, as you get a bit older, a bit wiser. And then also like with the whole temperature thing, again, big believer in the mindset work. It wasn't until I started pushing the mindset side of things after, cause obviously like I said, fitness and things has always been into it. Get to levels, drop off, get to levels, drop off. It wasn't until after I had that little bit of starting to get a bit depressed and things before moving up to obviously Northeast and meeting you, where I started working on myself and the coaching and thinking, I'm going to delve a bit more into this mindset side of things, which is where I started to notice behaviours that little bit more. And it's something I always say to my clients is I try and get them to a point where they notice behaviours and they can sit there and literally I'll be having a conversation with them and they'll do the same thing. They'll kind of coach themselves through it. And they'll be like, I'm doing this, but it's probably because of this, because I'm acting like this. And you're like, well, there you go, there's the answer and things. So, it's a bit of a long, you're going to get used to this, people. I waffle a lot. Your mind goes off on little tracks. So it's just kind of, I think it's just that little bit of age and things, bit of work. Like I said, working on myself, learning about myself, learning about how the mind works, a bit on psychology, those sort of bits, and then just putting it into action and sort of trying.
Great answer. And thinking about that, your career journey then. So you leave school. What was next for you after you leave?
What was next for me? Sit on my ass and do nothing. What was next, to be honest? I'm a lazy person if I get the chance to be. Like badly as well. Like I've noticed I've got a little bit of time off at the moment and I fall into habits really quickly. Just being lazy, just thinking, like even like cleaning the house, stuff like that. I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow. And the next thing you know, you're about to go back to full on life and work. And you're like, I haven't done anything. So straight after school, I actually went to college, and you're going to be surprised at the next bit. I actually went to uni. So not for very long, because my wife always laughs about this, because I went to uni, basically didn't have anything else to do. So I went to college, done the whole, obviously, just getting drunk and just being lazy and jumping between jobs wise, just the typical working shops and that kind of thing, a little bit of beer money, as they say. Over the summer, didn't apply for any unis, then got offered the space at the sort of the college university that I was at doing college stuff at, and just I've got nothing else to do, so I'm going to do that. Went to college for about quarter of a year and just went a uni side for about a quarter of a year. I was like, this ain't for me. Dropped out, bummed around a little bit, just being lazy and drinking and those sort of things as you do, I guess, at that age, or some people do. Wife's story is completely different to mine. I was a little bit, We've got some stories we might have to delve into one day. I'll come up with stuff and she always goes, that's not normal. That's not a normal childhood. It's not really, is it? But we'll delve into that another day. We'll do some trauma stuff then. Then I actually ended up going into the RAF. That was my next kind of big step. Went into the RAF regiment. Didn't stick with it. Again, got to sort of a point. This was a bit of a rebellion stage, which was a bit... Again, this is where reframing and stuff, as you get a bit older, you can kind of learn from it. It's always one of my things I always say my biggest regret was dropping out. I got to like 2 weeks away from passing, made sort of a mistake on the drill, and they sent me back to week 2. So I was going to have to relive like the whole like 3-4 months again. I was young, dumb, and just sort of wasn't happy with it, and kind of
Yeah.
went, right, I'm leaving then. And they were like, oh, why are you leaving? You passed everything first time. This is your first mistake. It's just what we do. And I was just like, nah, I'm not having it, and kind of left, and that was it. Reframe it. I know a lot of people that went through, came back from a tour, never went back again. Or in some cases, obviously, there's people that have never come back, unfortunately. Stuff. So could have ended up being one of those, and it would have left me on the trajectory of where life has gone now, which I'm happy with. So that's my
100%.
next step, without going off on the whole tangent of my life.
No, really interesting. What was the mistake on during the RAF training? Do you remember?
Yes,
Yeah.
because it haunts me to this day. As much as I say, like, oh, I reflected on it and things, I don't like making mistakes like that, especially obviously the job I'm in now. It was a rifle drill mistake.
Okay.
So, it's a fair enough mistake. And things was out, was doing sleep deprivation week. So you just sort of knackered, you're getting lack of sleep. We had at that time when I was doing it, on record, they said one of the worst courses of like weather and things like
Wow.
that. Like every time we went out for a week out in the field, it was either full on like storms. We had like snowstorms and stuff, trying to dig
Wow.
trenches, like frozen ground, and it was just
Oh, yeah.
hideous. Good challenge, but hideous. So just out of tiredness and things like that, made a little bit of a rifle drill mistake. And then they normally, because they've done it to someone before, or I say normally, I don't know if this is the normal thing. I'm sure there'll people be out there listen and will probably say it's completely wrong what I'm saying. But they make you do the rifle drills there and then on the spot. Like, so while you're tired, just be like, right, do this, do this, do this, and you have to go through them all and things like that. They didn't. And when I got back, they were like, right, we're going back to week 2. And someone else I know done a similar mistake, made him go through the tests and kept him on. One of the things I was told is they like the corps that I was on. I won't say which one it is because I said I don't know whether people are still doing
Yeah.
them, things like that. They only like to pass out a certain amount of numbers.
Mm.
There were a couple of people over.
Right.
I was one of the people that made mistakes. It's one of those next people that make mistakes, you're kind of getting put
Yeah.
back, that sort of thing. People probably argue that that's what I was told at the time, but it is
Yeah.
what it is. And I threw a strop basically and kind of left. So it was on me, the mistake. You know, it's something you shouldn't do because it could cause injury and things like that to yourself or someone else, or could kill someone, I guess, if it goes wrong in those sort of moments. But it is what it is. But yeah, it haunts me that drill.
I think when you're ambitious and you're doing all these different things, that I think you're gonna have moments like that, like the what if, like, well, what if I'd done this? Where would life have taken me? Or
Yeah.
so I think that's completely natural. We've left the RAF. At what point do you start to think about getting into health and fitness in a more professional way?
From that, actually, it was from the RAF. So I jumped, I kind of went out of that and then went straight into like a personal training course. Got my, obviously, like as you know, you're level 2, so I could work in the gym. Started working in the gym while doing my level 3 that in fitness and things. So I could be a personal trainer, and that was kind of it. That was just sort of the transition because I really enjoyed the fitness side of RAF and that kind of being pushed sort of
Mm.
mentally and physically that way. So I was like, well, how else can I do that again? But obviously do it for other people. Lost obviously quite a lot of weight doing that anyway. People always say I wasn't chubby. My close friends will tell you I was chubby. So it was kind of like losing that weight. So I kind of lost quite a lot to get in
Yeah.
to the RAF, and then from that point, just obviously kept my fitness going and up. Really enjoyed that side of it, and then came straight out and went straight into the gym world.
So I think this is a really interesting part to this conversation. How does health and fitness help you as an introvert be be more higher performing? Like how does that impact you being, in great shape, fit, healthy, a beast? How does that help you to function?
It's mentally, isn't it? It's that
Mm.
whole, like, statistics say and show that people that are more successful tend to
Yeah.
be into fitness to
Mm.
some point. And again, it's proven that exercise and looking after yourself builds structure in your daily habits, which then transfer into other life skills that you have. It starts building that structure. You look good, you feel good, you tend to be a bit more proud of yourself, which I think is a big thing with introversion. You're not saying we're not particularly proud of ourselves, but we're so kind of, I know for me, like I can get so quiet and in my shell, and I still do it, and meeting like big crowds of people. I quite easily stand on my own and hope no one's going to talk to me. But then other times I'll be like, no, let's get out there and meet people. But part of that is, that training helps with that, exercise helps with that, because you feel good, you start to look better as a side effect of training. And then from that, like I said, it's that structure and everything. And then you just, like I said, because of those feel good feelings, we can go into the science behind it, getting all that dopamine and things like that going. It just makes you want to go and achieve more in your life. And that's a big part of exercise and fitness, without getting into the nitty gritty and the deep diving into science and things behind it, because we're poor people.
I see a noticeable difference when I am training and when I'm not, when it comes to my confidence and
Yeah.
my perceived ability to do what I want to do. So like, for example, I always will train before an interview or a presentation or a talk or whatever, because I know it gets me into that feeling of, yeah, I can do this. Like, I'm unstoppable. I can get to that point. Do you think that's the same as for you?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like massively with things. I've got some examples of it. I've got some very, very recent example. Obviously, coming off of what we spoke about on my course and things I've just done with fire service stuff, high level of fitness, but I come in at quite a high level, dropped quite a bit. Now just going back to my training and thinking, right, I want to compete again in competitions, going into gyms. I am so nervous about going into gyms and looking bad, even though over quite a few people in there, I probably still look good without trying to be big-headed or things like that. I'm still able to do a lot of movement and stuff, but because I know where I have been and how I feel, because I haven't been eating as well as I would normally, and that bit's kind of all been out of my control. The training's been out of my control, so I'm not training the way I would like to train. It's mentally, you automatically just don't feel as good, don't feel as confident about yourself. My wife hates it and notices it because I make comments about myself. Like if I'm walk past the mirror, I'm awful with it. Trauma people have some fun with me with stuff. But that's from when I was younger and used to be overweight and chubby and trying to lose weight and things like that. I've got things, and I still got those mental issues when I deal with them, but I notice they start creeping back in if I'm not feeling good. So if I'm not training regularly, I'm not looking after my food, not going out and doing all my mindset work, the breath work, the cold therapies, interacting with people, all these different things, then I really feel it on my performance in everything else, like as me as a person and stuff like that. Yeah.
So what would you say to those people who maybe are new to training or just lacking in confidence? Maybe they're overweight, or maybe they're not. Maybe they just want to feel a bit more unstoppable. What would your advice be to get started with all of this? Like, what would be the first steps to start your health and fitness journey, I guess?
Different ones. There's loads of different ways. So I'm trying to think of. I've had recent conversations with people sort of about this. It doesn't need to be as hard as people make out it is. Everyone in their head have got this like ideal body they want to get like, and they want to look like, or who they want to be, and things like that. And it's like you're never going to be them. Obviously, you're going to be a version of you, just a healthier version of you. Take it. Make simple steps. Don't have to go down the route of tracking everything and making sure your workout program is perfect. I actually had someone message me about this yesterday, asking for a bit of advice and things on some training for them going into the services and stuff. I was saying to them, I was like, don't get hung up on everything you feel that you should be doing. Just get out and start doing something. Like, even if it is just put your shoes on, go for a walk, take the dog out, do that 3 times a week. You'll feel better from it. Start making small steps. So something that I know you say as well to clients, and because I've worked with you, and I say to clients is, what's the challenge? Where do you want to get to? So it's good to have these things. It's good to have these goals. We need to have them. How are we going to then break that down into what's the easiest first step you can do now?
Yeah.
As soon as we get off this call, what are you going to do? And I can hold you accountable for. Do you know what? I'm going to go out for a walk in an hour's time. All right, I'll call you. Make
Yeah.
sure you're out on that walk. It's just simple. Be careful. I say it's simple because be careful you don't get like me, and I think this is an introversion thing. Is I've researched the hell out of everything before I do it. Before I make a purchase, before I do whatever it is, I've researched it like crazy because I want it to be right, and then I have to remind myself of that whole just take a bit of action. Like the rest will follow. It will snowball because what will happen is you'll get out, you start doing a bit of a walk, or don't go down the running route. Everyone likes to think that if I'm going to get fit, I just have to start running first. A lot of people go run, they get runners high, go and injure themselves, and then they're out for ages. Running's actually, this is the sports therapy side of me coming out, people, I'm afraid. It's actually hard movement on the body. There's a lot of mechanics that are going in that if you're not strong in certain areas and places, knee injuries, ankle injuries, back injuries, all these things are going to start happening. So I'd say get out walking, start doing some resistance work of some kind, just some low resistance work, even if it's body weight stuff. If you're nervous about going out, there's loads of things online you can do and find, and people that you can work with that don't even cost anything. You know, YouTube is an amazing thing. You can find pretty much anything you want. Start getting that kind of feel good going, then you can take more action. And it's that whole thing. You'll feel better, you'll take more action in yourself, you'll have that belief in yourself, and we can keep kind of going from there. And that'd be it. There's other bits you can add in because this is a massive subject we could add in. Accountability is a huge thing, especially introversion or introverts. If you're hiding away, we're shying away from people. We say we're going to exercise at home, probably not going to exercise at home. So there is a point of going somewhere that's going to make you do something is better than staying at home. So even if it's join a class, which again is that big step of you got to break that barrier. It's where we said before at the beginning, at some point you have to take action. So at some point you can be as nervous and as introvert as you like, and you want the answer of how you're going to go from here to get into that class. Unfortunately, you're going to have to step through the door and take the class. You know, it is that sort of thing. And then it won't be as scary the next time around, stuff like that. Because you will then meet people exactly like you, exactly the same, or have been in the same position. And now you've got someone to aspire to because they've turned around and gone, oh, I remember when I was this weight or unhealthy. And now look at me, like all from coming this. That would be it. That would be your little key. So I waffled a bit there, I'm afraid.
Perfect. You definitely did. And it always comes back to the thing that you said at the start, which was you've got to take action. The answer to all of life's problems, to all of your ambitions, improving your relationships, to making more money, to starting a business, to overcoming mental health, to weight loss, to being an amazing crossfitter, to whatever, is always the same one word, and it's action. Taking action. The thing that I realized a few times is that no one's coming to save you. You've got to save yourself. And that all comes back to that action. What does that look like to Rob Sanders? Has there been a moment in your career where you have taken some massive action and really went all for all guns blazing on something? What did that process look like for you?
It's been a few. We'll go with the latest one because it'll be the easiest one to talk about. So, as you mentioned, obviously firefighter and things like that. It's a recent thing. I've been a firefighter for 2 years now on an on-call side of it, and now gone into obviously full-time and whole-time side of it. So the biggest action I've taken is that whole process it was a long process, as you know, to get in to actually being on that course took a year to go through of interviews and tests and physical tests, which were fine. I knew I'd be fine with them, but things like the written exams and the maths, which for me is just horrendous. I don't know how I got through the tests, but I did. I think that for me, that's taking that massive action. I mentioned earlier, not being in the best place when it comes to the financial side, and been a lot of problems with sort of family, trying to have a family. And things. There's a lot going on that side, and for me, this wasn't sort of a way out or a way to fix it, but it was a dream I've always wanted. Went into on call, realised actually, no, I do want to do this whole time. I should have done this years ago. And then it was like, right, how am I going to get to there? Because the benefit for once I'm there, financially, with the family, all of these different things is going to help with it. So there's a lot of pressure I put on myself to kind of get through each process and get to that point. And in doing so, it meant I had to take massive action on maths. I know it's my weakest point. That was one of the first tests I'm going to have to pass. Passed it, and it was tough. And I haven't had to go back again and retake all the tests because they want you to prove that it's you. So you have to go back in person. And for someone who has God knows how much anxiety to even going and paying for something in a shop in case I have to try and work out exactly how much I've got to give someone. That's why it's thank God for cards and you can just swipe things. Like that would bring me massive anxiety, just basic maths. But yet I'm being asked to go and pass these exams and these tests. So it just meant every night I was working, I knew where I wanted to go, I knew what I wanted to be. So I had to take that action on that to get through each process, get onto the course. And then even from that point on, you're not guaranteed. You can get knocked off at any point. It's an intensive, tough course. And all the way through that, again, you're just getting tested every week. There's 1 week we had 13 assessments and tests. And I know I got a bit of background in it. And a lot of people say that will help. And it does to a point, but different services kind of have different ways of doing things. And the knowledge that they wanted out of you was a lot more than what I kind of had at that time. So there's a lot of hours of just work and not being lazy, like I've already said, and putting that work in to get to that point, to that end game. And for someone who's like me, who's dyslexic and introvert, come out with distinction and obviously scored the highest in all exams was incredible. So that's the time I took massive action and got to where I wanted to be.
It's such a great example, and I'm so proud of you for what you've done. You've smashed that process, and it's so inspiring to see. And you've overcome so many different challenges. And I've got so many follow-up questions to this thing. I think something that would be really nice actually. Do you want to tell the listeners about why the fire service was so important to you and why you wanted to go into it firstly?
So, and Dad, massive inspiration. So he was in Battle of Britain, obviously in the wars as well. You can probably start to work out what his age might be because he is still alive for this day. And then it was a firefighter for, I wouldn't be able to say how many years. I've got it somewhere. Countless of years, all the way up to sort of deputy chief of Staffordshire, and then retired as acting chief when he actually retired, and then went into the fire service, things like the benevolent fund and things like that, which is all charity work and stuff for obviously that lose people from the fire service and how they kind of help. And then that I think for another 40 odd years or something. So he is 103 for people out there. Yeah, crazy. He came out to my pass out parade, which is a picture I've always dreamt of having. I never thought was going to happen because I thought about the fire service years and years ago. Didn't think I was good enough for it, for the maths and English side of it, because whenever you look it up, they say you've got to have an equivalent of C and stuff like that. I didn't have that, so I just figured I couldn't get in, and then found out actually you can still take the tests, and if you're good enough, you're good enough. So yeah, finally got to get. He's hung on in there for me to get my picture of me, obviously in my uniform, him suited and booted with some medals on. He didn't, as he said, he didn't have all of them on because they weigh him down too much now. Because he is 103, and I was like, all right, sure. But so I got to have that, and yeah, like I said, massive inspirational person, even on the fitness side, the health side, getting to 103. If you ask him, he's done a speech before about how have you got to the age you're at and how you're doing so well, and he always says good family and family around him.
Nice.
In fact, he's lucky because he did get called lucky through the war. If we missed out on a few things that could have gone a different way. Charity work, and they're normally his top 3, and now he's added another one. I found out, and his other one he's added on is his health, and it was his lifestyle because my nan was Greek, So he's lived a very sort of Mediterranean food type of thing, which as we know now, and this is where I'm going to bore you all a bit, with Mediterranean diets and things like that, it's one of the best out there in terms of like, you know, things like your olive oil, those all those things which actually can go through the blood-brain barrier, which are really good for us. And it's, you know, he's a living proof of looking after yourself is a big part of it. And to this day, he still gets online. And when I talk to him, he's told me things that he's been looking up and he's changing in his own diet.
Amazing.
And what he's doing on a daily basis to try and keep himself going and things.
Wow.
So incredible. Yeah, massive inspiration.
Yeah, man, 103, such a great career, and with everything he's done and achieved. So amazing that you're following in his footsteps in a sense. Really inspiring stuff. When it comes to the practicalities then, I do want to touch on your dyslexia for a second. How does that disrupt you?
Yeah, so it's a tricky one in terms of whereabouts you are sort of on it, because or what type of dyslexia, and so you've got like dyspraxia and stuff like that. So I only found out back in the RAF. I was doing some tests for them, and some woman pulled me aside and was like, "We need to have a chat and things about the maths tests and exams I just done." I was like, "Okay, yeah." And then she started talking to me, and she was like, "So when you read things, the words like jumble up and kind of move around a little bit." And I was like, "Yeah, they do." Right. And she's like, "And when you're doing your maths and all this stuff," and she's just started going off down this little route. And I was like, "God, this woman gets me." Don't know what it is, gets me. She just went, "Did you know you're dyslexic?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." Actually, I was like, "That means a lot." But what it is so she says, I'm dyslexic, but I'm sort of not just dyslexic, but it's that point of where some people wouldn't have noticed because they do quite well at things until I do certain stuff, and you can really see it. So my family have all been teachers in terms of my mum, my dad, like my mum's other half and things like that. They're all teachers, and I told my mum it, and she was like, "Yeah, I've known your whole life." Because obviously they test for it anyway, and she said she'd been pushing to get tests for me, but the schools would never test me because I'd suddenly do well, and then I'd do certain things, and it'd be like obvious, and then I'd do well at something, and kind of so on. And then same with my wife, she says it as well, and same as my mum's other half. When I get him, because he proofreads everything for me. Obviously, you've met Chris, lovely bloke, proofreads everything, and he says he sits there and laughs to himself because he's like, "How do people not know?" Like, it's obvious in the way that I write. And same with like Claire, she does the same thing. She's like, "It's just like it is obvious when you sort of know." So yeah. So I'd say it in terms of it didn't really affect me that much until I found out. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
In my head, I was like, "Oh, I'm just a little bit stupid, a little bit thick. I just find things harder."
Sure.
And then, but I just cracked on. Then I found out I was, and then it started becoming this whole thing. Like, "Oh, you are dyslexic, so it means you must be bad at this. You must struggle with this." Whereas before, like I said, I just kind of coasting on through life, thinking I'm good at some things, I'm crap at others. It's just life. Until I got to a point, I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly where I pinpointed it, but there was a point where I was like, "Well, in that case, now I need to start proving that I can do things. I can do more." And I think this is part of that journey of that, of like you always say, I think you've made a comment before to me. I was a least introvert or something like that, that you'd met in terms of some of the things that I've gone and done.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I have a whole thing about I've got to prove that I can do it. So same with the tests I was doing. It's like, well, maths test, right? I'm going to prove I can do it, even though I absolutely flunked maths at school. So it's just kind of having to push yourself that little bit more. So in terms of the day-to-day basis, and they're kind of like long-winded, reading, as I mentioned, things just jumble around. If I read things quickly, I will miss words. I will make up words that are in there and make up my own story or something. Struggle to read words. You all know, working with me, I cannot spell to save my life. Limiting belief, it may be, but I struggle with it. Punctuation I'm only just starting to learn how to use punctuation, and I stick it everywhere. I don't even know if it's right. I just put things in. Story of when I met my missus. And if she, I don't know how we ended up getting together in terms of she's highly intelligent, and every message I'd send her, thinking, trying to chat her up or this, she would message it back to me with all the spelling mistakes and the punctuation fitted. But for some reason, rather than being like, oh, stuff this, I can't bother with this. I was like, oh, okay, right, I'll try again. So reading, writing is a tough one. Like maths, it does take away my confidence of trying to do certain things.
Yeah.
I've noticed that a lot with, like when I worked with you, I would kind of get you to do any writing sort of stuff because I really struggle with it and I know how taxing it would be for me.
Yeah.
Wrong thing to do, because really you want to get better at something, you need to just crack on and get it done. And then that's something I've learned with the whole taking action thing. It's like, just get on with it. You're gonna have to do it at some point. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's it's like your cute little story for you and the lovely Claire of how you
Yeah.
flirted. You sent the wrong spelling and she corrected
Poor
you.
grammar. And she just corrected me.
It was all a game. You can spell really. It was just all a game.
Yeah, it was my way to win her over.
No, that's superb. Linking that to how hard you work. So I know you say you're lazy or have a lazy tendency. You were studying for all these exams. Obviously, the dyslexic people we just talked about. What did that look like for you then? Do you have to read everything hundreds and hundreds of times or write it out more? Or how do you get to that point of feeling comfortable going these high level exams and tests and things, thinking, okay, I've got a bit more of a shot going into this?
I don't think I ever do. I always
Yeah.
think I'm going to flunk them until I do it, and then I go, oh, this one. So some of the tests I think one of them I got like 99% on, and I guaranteed I'd flunk that. I found it, and I was like,
99%,
oh,
yeah.
perfect. I was like, oh, look at me, that sort of thing. And no, so it is that it's reading. So I have to read everything a lot. Page I'll probably go over about 5 times, or
Yeah.
like sentences and phrases. It's only recently, with what I've done recently, I've found what I think is going to be something I'm going to use moving forward for any other kind of exams I might have to face or any of those kind of challenges. And it was something that one of my mentors told me to do, and it was to record everything. So loads of voice notes. So I had perfect time in the morning and in the evening when I was driving, so a good 45 minutes to just sit and listen to basically me on repeat, which gets very annoying and very boring. But if for some reason it worked, things just started sinking in a lot more because I'd sit there, say it out, listen to it, then I'd repeat it back to myself.
Yeah.
Get it wrong, right? Repeat it again, and get it until the point I could get say what I was trying to say, sort of word for word. So that's what's really helped me. So anyone who is struggles out there, dyslexic, try that. Like that was a key thing for me. It's just trying to find what works for you learning wise. But yeah, reading, I have to just go things over and over again. When it comes to sort of more practical side of things, I need to know the why behind it. Like, why am I doing this? What's the point of doing this so-called thing? I can't particularly think of an exact example now, but if I know that and I've got a bit of interest in it, then I'll find that I'll learn it. Because like I said before, I've got quite an addictive personality. If I like something, I want to know every single thing about that one particular thing I can find. So if I can find that kind of reason, why have I got to use this so-called bit of equipment, or why have I got to do this certain thing, that will help me learn it more, and I'd get more out of it doing it that way. I'm quite a practical person, so having that kind of practical sort of steps and just having a go and getting it wrong makes dividends for me and things like that. So.
Yeah. And I think all of those techniques are really valuable. And I think sometimes, and I'm generalizing, but people who are struggling are just like, oh, I can't learn that, or oh, I'll never be able to do that. When actually, if you just grind it out, like you saying, listening over and over to your own voice. Is it nice? No. Do you have to, does it work? Yes, it does. For me, my process is writing it out and out again and again and again and again. And eventually it's like, okay, I've written this out so many times. It's like muscle memory. It's not nice, but it gets you to the point of feeling like you know it. So I think again, it's really interesting just to hear about all these different learning techniques or styles. Yeah, there's anyone can learn stuff if they just apply themselves to it. And that is definitely the case with you when it comes again to your firefighting, because you One, I thought you were going to go and talk about this, but then you're too modest. You won a trophy for scoring the highest in an exam or being the most knowledgeable, didn't you? Something like that. Tell us about
Yeah, yes, I did.
that.
So yeah, I did. It's a weird one because part of me, and this is where I'd get the whole doubt side of it. Because part of me is like, oh well, you're in like on call in fire
Right,
service
right.
anyway. You should know it and so on. But to not take away from myself, like that doesn't matter. Yeah, there's certain bits I knew. I knew a little bit more than some people, which is great, and it did help out to certain things. I mentioned it earlier that different services do things, as I found out, completely different, and then what they kind of want you to know, and the in-depth knowledge of that is a lot to take in. And I'm not going to take away from the fact that I put a lot of work in revision wise, like hours and hours to try and make sure I knew it. I think there was that little bit of extra pressure around because I'm probably expected to know that
Mm,
bit more. So it forced me to be like, well, no, I want to prove that
yeah,
I do, that I can, that it. And anyone that does know me, so people that didn't and might just think, oh, well, you knew that a little bit before. I'm normally the person that tends to have a good few attempts of
mm,
an exam before I get it right and stuff. So I knew there was that kind of pressure with it. And then talking about, you was mentioning about learning styles, things like that, something to add in. And this is one I think for people that are trying to learn something or take on a challenge is that motivation behind it. There's loads of ways you can find motivation and work on it. And you can go into the science and things behind it on getting your body to get certain chemicals going that's going to give you motivation to take some kind of action. But I think a big part of it is you need to find that thing that's going to make you take the action you need to get to where you want to be, whether it is studying something, even if it's saying that you hate, it's going to be long, boring or whatever. What are you going to get from it? Like,
yeah.
is there actually something on the other side that if you pass this, you're going to achieve, I know, something greater that you've been trying to get to? Well, there's your motivation to just get on and start doing it. Otherwise, you're never going to reach it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that just shows what you can achieve. You've done incredibly well. Yeah, again, mate, more compliments coming your way. So it's
I know,
all
I
good.
know. I should take it. I automatically go straight to you're probably
Yeah,
expected to do better and things like that. And it's like, well, no, I have to remind myself that no, I've worked freaking hard, like with the exams to get there. Like
right.
there wasn't one exam that I went into going, well, I know this already. It's going to be easy. I went
Yeah,
in going, don't know if I'm going to pass this one,
yeah.
and obviously did. Yeah, yeah. So can't take away from that.
No, definitely. And we've talked a lot about kind of the your career and the physical stuff. A big part of your world is that mindset and the different hacks that you can do to be a high performing person, or how you can use mindset to overcome challenges and setbacks. And you've got this great career in coaching that we'll talk about in a second as well. But one of the things that you were quite open with was some of the challenges that you've gone through, growing up, and one of those was the loss of your dad. How did that affect you, and how old were you when that happened?
Oh, maths. I need to work it out. I've got a tattoo on my arm. So I'll let you do the maths. I am 37. Lost him in 2011.
13 years ago, so you're about 33, 33, 34. No, 23, 24.
No, yeah, that's
About
about
right?
right. Yeah, about 23, 24. Yeah. So that was when I lost him.
Okay.
Unfortunately, to the big C. Quite quickly, noticed he was sort of quite ill and things like that. What was your question again around it? Because I'm about to go waffle on a story here.
Yeah, I think the main thing is, just how were you during that time? Because something that I really like to talk about is how, a trauma is obviously such a horrendous thing to go through. Yeah, what did that then mean for your life, and how did that change you, I guess, moving forward?
Yes. So was that typical stereotypical male, I'd say,
Mm,
in terms of I acted like it wasn't
yeah,
affecting me. It wasn't going to affect me. I was doing crazy hours. I like 2 jobs on the go. So I'd go and work, go and then personal train. Then I'd go and see my dad at the hospital for an hour or so. Then I'd have keys to the gym. So about 11 o'clock at night, I'd go back to the gym to have a workout and then go home and then be up again at 5 the next day and kind of start the whole thing. So it was taxing in that way. But how it sort of affected me. So I was that typical male. I kind of acted like it didn't. One of my best friends, he always talks about it, and he'd always sort of ring me and check in. And he says to this day, he goes, one statement I used to always say, and it was obviously a bit of a coping one and a bit of reframing. I know you like a bit of reframing. Was he'd ask, "Oh, how am I?" and things like that, and I'd always say, "There's someone out there that's going through something worse than me, so I'm fine. Like, don't worry about it," that sort of thing. And like it's a way of reframing. It's a great tool to use. You know, there are people out there that have gone through a lot worse. There'll be situations I'd pick that over, you know, losing all of my family or, you know, something like that or like, you know, people and wars and stuff like that going on. But then also it's a mask because I don't want to be centre of attention and I want people giving me all this attention and feeling sorry for me and stuff like that. And then out of my family, I think I kind of put a bit of a mask on it as well because Dad made me power of attorney, which was really nice of him. It's a conversation we had, and he sort of decided that he felt that I'd be able to cope with it kind of over my brother and my mum. Mum and Dad weren't together, but they were still really good friends and, you know, spend a lot of time with each other as friends. And my dad made a point of meeting like Chris, my mum's other half, and they actually became really good friends and stuff like that. So they didn't take it obviously very well, especially my brother didn't take it too well, and I with my mum. So it was that whole kind of stepping up and sorting all the funeral arrangements out, sorting out everything that kind of unfortunately goes on once they've gone, and you have all this backlash of sorting out bills and letting people know that he's died and stuff like that. It's crazy thing to kind of go through the other side of it. And then I've had a bit of a rebellion stage in terms of literally like 2 weeks after I went away on holiday with a couple of mates. It was needed because it was just all out, went to Ibiza, and you can kind of imagine what it was like. Needed, probably wasn't the most healthiest, but it was a needed thing to do. Came back and kind of went straight back to work and kind of acted as if life was completely normal, as if I hadn't really lost anyone. I just kind of carried on, even though I had. And it was chipping away a different way. I'm a big, as my missus will still say it, she goes, "You're a very unemotional person." There's not many times I show emotion, which can be a good thing, but also it can be a bad thing, as we know. And then it wasn't until later on, so I'll kind of skip ahead a little bit, sort of a few years in that training. Obviously, I've met Claire by this point. This is when I come back from traveling and things. And before moving up here, where there was just a point of my training, I just kind of started giving up. I started getting really lazy. I started cancelling clients all the time, just like making a point of being like, I can't be asked to go in the next couple of hours. I'm just going to cancel them all. And what was I doing? I was just sitting on my ass at home, to be honest. I trained still to tick over because it was more of that it's like going back to who you are in your jobs. I was a personal trainer. I need to be a certain way and look a certain way. So I'm going to carry on with it and kind of carried on putting on this mask, but had no love for it at all. And sessions were just sloppy and whatever else. And like I said, cancelling clients and all these different things. So really, it wasn't until later on I kind of realised, actually, I think I was falling into a bit of depression about it. I left it for so long, just ignoring it. Then it hit me that with that side of it, and we actually moved away. We ended up moving up to the northeast where I met you. And it wasn't until that point when I mentioned earlier in our conversation, I was like, right, I'm going to really work on myself. Got married, COVID hit. I was still feeling that bit of depression, finding it hard to kind of get back into training and wanting to train other people. And I'd met you sort of just before that point. And then obviously COVID hit, and then it was like, all right, something's going on. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to get selfish here, and I'm going to start thinking about me rather than how am I portraying myself to family, being this person that's it hasn't bothered and things like that. Like even and nothing away from my family, love them to pieces, but I still get it now with I'm the strong one in the
Yeah.
family. I'm
Yeah.
the, let's say you get these statements of who you are. So you automatically go, well, I have to be that person.
Hmm.
I have to be like that. Um, and I think they were sort of affecting me at
Hmm.
those points. And then, yeah, that's where I wanted to start kind of working on myself and going on this journey of sort of self discovery and what can I do and how can I change this feeling I didn't quite know was depression at the time
Yeah.
and get rid of it, explore it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. What what was going through your mind then at 23? Because that is a baby, like 23, 24 is so young to have to step up and be the leader of your family. Yeah, what was that like? Did you completely change how you acted in terms of taking on more responsibility, or was it not as big as I'm kind of making it out?
I don't know. I think it depends on who you ask, really. To me, I didn't feel much different apart from just get on with it.
Yeah,
that was my thing. It was like just get on with it, get over it, and get on with it. Like
yeah, yeah,
push on,
yeah,
crack on. Like you can cry about it later, that sort of thing. It was that whole thing of like, I was upset at the funeral, but
yeah,
I wasn't upset, if that
yeah,
makes sense. Like,
yeah,
so, so yeah, so I think it was a kind of, yeah, I just felt like I had to be the one that doesn't get emotional over
yeah,
it
yeah.
and
Hmm.
doesn't really like talk about it. And like I said, I was young at the time. I was going out and I was partying quite a lot, probably more so because of it
Yeah,
and things. And it was all just mask of trying to just crack on as a normal person and kind of go through it. All we all sort of weren't living together anyway. Like my dad's never lived with us. Like I wasn't living with my brother or my mum, so it was all
yeah,
sort of, even though I was kind of in charge of it all and stepping up and things for the family, none of us really kind of lived together. But
yeah,
I'd be the one that would kind of like that coaching thing. I would talk to them all and be like trying to talk them out of being upset and like how
yeah,
we're just going to get on and push on and carry on with life and things like that. And didn't want it to kind of take hold. But I think a big thing for me was like, and it's a bad thing, is I ignored it.
yeah,
Like I generally just went, it hasn't happened. I just don't have a dad, that sort of
yeah,
thing. Obviously, I have the memories and things of him. And I remember on a holiday with my mum, my wife, and my mum's other half and things, and they're all talking about him, and which was nice. Like none of them were saying anything particularly like, not like
yeah,
nasty or anything like that. Just talking about his character and how he was autistic. He just wouldn't have been diagnosed with it. Like dad was great, like amazing in terms of when it comes to that kind of autistic thing. He was like he passed the Mensa exams, so he's
oh,
like
well,
top, was it like 2% of the country, like things like that, like ridiculously intelligent, but not very good socially, like skills. It's that kind of autistic, like
mm,
highly intelligent maths
yes,
teacher, and I'm not very good at that. Maths teacher, so he wasn't very happy with my maths exams when I got him back. And I just remember them like having this chat, and it was all like I said, just normal, nice things, just talking about kind of who he was as a person, kind of talking to Claire, and I just lost my wrangle and was like,
mm,
can we just stop every talking
yeah,
about him? I don't care. I don't want to talk about him. And it was a bit of a moment of me, and I sort of walked off, and like everyone was kind of like, "Ooh," that sort of stopped.
yeah, yeah,
And they did stop, and we just carried on as normal. But it was a moment for me to kind of go, all right, like I just ignored him. I
yeah,
ignored the fact that he had died. I still do it now to a point. And then I have these things, I call them D days, where they're
yes,
days where I call it their dad days is what
yeah,
they're classed as. And they're not days where I'm like depressed or anything like that. They're just days like most people where you just might be thinking about it a bit more.
yeah,
You might just
yeah,
be a little bit more down and trying to find ways to kind of like pick yourself up and things. And I call them D days, and it's because it'll be out of nowhere, something will just pop up, and it might be
yeah,
a nice memory or something like that, and then it just kind of affects so the rest of the day. But yeah, I spent years just ignoring it,
yeah,
just ignoring the fact that he died. I think mates today that still talk to me about it. And ask things about it and go, oh, it's such a bad thing. Like you, oh, you're so young when it happened, and I
yeah,
remember when we were like going through it, and like these like close mates back from Essex, and even then, I still find it hard to talk about. I
yeah,
just ignore it. I'm just like, yeah,
yeah,
well, it is what it is, isn't it?
yeah,
And it's like, well, it's not really. Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
weird one.
yeah, and is that kind of turned into what you kind of call depression or feeling low and all that sort of thing? What was the moment where you thought I needed to get this sorted? Was there a moment, or was it kind of just a build up of things?
I think it was just the build up of things. It's like I was saying, it was just, it was, like I said, it was when I decided that I needed to just kind of work on myself. I just knew something wasn't
Mm,
quite right. And I was like, right, I need to start investigating like the mindset more and mind. So obviously saying's not quite right because I'm getting lazy. I've fallen out of love of training. Kind of just coasting along
yeah,
in life. I'm ticking on by. I'm not particularly doing much help around like the house or
yeah,
financially. I can't seem to find my groove with it because I've moved
hmm
up here and obviously COVID hit. Like the work, obviously we had
yeah,
met and we started trying to work on building a business and things. So it was just that whole thought of right, I need to kind of work on myself and push
mm,
myself and where can I go with it. And I ended up going down the route of, obviously, as you know, coaching and studying more around mindset and NLP and stuff like
yeah,
that. And it wasn't actually till kind of working on those things is where I started getting more realizations. Because as we mentioned earlier, when we talk to each other about something that a challenge we might be facing, we tend
mm,
to talk ourselves through it and go, "Oh yeah, there's the
yeah,
answer." And it wasn't until doing those things and looking more into mindset, learning stuff about obviously more on Tony Robbins and Ed Milet and Brendan Burchard and all these different
yeah,
people, and they started dropping all these little nuggets of information. And then I went down the route of going down the scientific side of it and what's physically happening in my body. How can I
mm,
change this mood? All right, go jump in a nice tub because you're going to get a hit of
yeah,
dopamine like greater than I think it's like cocaine and things like that. Like, so it's going to make you feel good. Right now, I feel good. Like, what can I go and do now? Let's go and do something while I'm feeling like this, and trying to work, kind of discover that, which has made that kind of change. And that was when, as I was going through that, I started realizing more stuff about my dad. I remember one of the
yeah,
people I was working with, coaching with, it was like she was on the same course as me. She was actually a trauma coach, and the hours we'd spend studying something, she'd sit there picking and picking at me till I started saying things about my dad, and she's like, "There you go.
right,
Now we're getting somewhere." And it wasn't until then I started getting a bit more realization. And then obviously a big thank you obviously to you as well with your story, because you're quite open
mm,
and honest about everything you've been through. Going through the business we set up together, it forced me to be a bit more like, oh, actually,
mm,
oh, there was a time I was depressed. It was when I lost my dad. Oh, what, you lost your dad? Yeah. And it was
yeah,
sort of then I started speaking more about it and then making those links to that's probably what that feeling was. All of that just building up where I ignored it, because now I'm feeling 10 times better because I talk about it more and work on it and discovered that feeling of what it was.
yeah, absolutely, mate. No, it's amazing to see you thriving now. And you talked about some of those. I don't know if hacks is the best word for this, but some of those tools that you can use to change your state and get a bit more of a positive outlook. You mentioned kind of ice baths. You are someone I've learned so much from, even just recently about that. I've mentioned on the podcast that I've just started ice baths. Like after your recommendation, you do things like obviously training regularly, up early, meditating, reading, journaling, all that sort of thing. So, what would you say to those people who maybe are feeling maybe they have got mental health issues or they're just feeling low? What's your number one way to change your state or improve your mood that you would go to when you're feeling down? What?
Oh, see, this is where we could do a whole nother
Yeah,
episode on
we will
topics. But
do it. Yeah, we will.
we have done that just because there's so much out there. Like I know I said like you just got to take action. That is the kind of be all and end all of it. But there's ways to kind of build the energy to take action and things like that. And like ways you can through using science and stuff to change chemically in your body and things. I had again, it's a client I was working with recently, and it's something that I use, and I know I don't know if you've mentioned him on the podcast yet, but you've definitely mentioned him before. But Trevor Mohad,
No,
great
I've mentioned
coach,
Trevor on
really
the
good
on the
coach and things, good
podcast.
book. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure you have. I remember you mentioned it, but it's someone I use a lot, and it's just this one term. And I think for someone that struggles specifically with anxieties and things like that, I hate the term mental health, but I don't know what else to call it. I can't think of his name now. It's a good doctor that does brain scans. He calls it brain health because the
Mm,
amount of scans that he's done, Dr. Amen, that's it. He can basically look at your brain and see what you're lacking in certain nutrition and stuff like that,
wow.
and that can affect completely change mental health. Really interesting. We'll have to go down that another day because there's lots and lots on that. The Trevor Mayo thing is a go-to one for me, and it's one I always say to people that struggle with trying to be positive or trying to move on, get that energy to take some steps to do something else if they're feeling sort of down and so on. And it's that whole neutral mindset that he talked about. So you got your positive mindset, you got your negative mindset and things. Obviously, something happens, we're facing a challenge or just daily life or whatever. If you're at that state, unfortunately, you're at that point where you even getting up is hard. It's someone ramming down your throat. Be positive. What can you be grateful for from this thing? I'm sure we're going to talk about a grateful thing in a minute, but like all these kind of things, which we love to do as coaches, like, come on, what's the positive in this? What can we be grateful about this certain situation and move forward? Sometimes it just really pisses you off. If you're in that kind of moment, it makes you worse. And I had a client talk to me about this. They struggled with it because they're like, you're just fucking annoying me because I'm trying to be positive, but I can't see anything to be fucking positive of because that's why I'm down here. So it's like, all right, but we don't want you to go negative and go down on a right spiral and, your mental health, brain health, whatever you want to call it, just sort of going down and you don't get anywhere. And then days, weeks, months, years could even go by. So he termed this thing and it's neutral mindset, but he uses it in form of like sports because he's a really good like sports mindset coach. But it came from the Apollo mission, I think. I might be getting it completely wrong, but this is the way I always describe it. And I'm sure this is how he described it. Obviously, the Apollo mission, they want to come back to Earth. They don't think they're going to make it. They think they're going to die or whatever. You can listen to NASA, like talking to them. And basically, they go through, like, what can we do? And they're like, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. We can try this. Do we know what the outcome's going to be? No, we don't know what the outcome's going to be. But we're going to try it. And it's either going to go wrong or it's going to go well. It obviously went well. And they just kept going through this thing. Yes, yes, yes. No, yes, no. Yes, we can try this. All right. Do we know what's going to happen? No, let's carry on. And obviously they made it back to Earth and things. And that's so from that, he's kind of taken this whole neutral mindset of what can you do in this moment to just move forward. You don't know what the outcome's going to be. You could end up in a spiral. It could make things worse. Yeah. It could just be that thing to make you feel that little bit better, to take that next step. If you've lost a job, what could you do? I could just maybe touch up my CV. Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. Feel a bit better. Oh, maybe I'll look for a couple of jobs. And that's the whole point. It's just, you can't see the positive, but you're just moving. And that's my thing I'd say to people is, if you're struggling, just find a way to move. You can't get out of bed. Give yourself 5 minutes, set an alarm. I am going to get out of bed in 5 minutes. Boom, you're up. Yeah. Then what's the next thing? Just move forward. Whether or not by the end of the day you're miserable and you're back in it, doesn't matter. You've tried something. Yeah. And then we can tackle it again the next day. And that's the whole idea of it. So that's what I use with people. And that's one of my go-tos with people when they really struggle with that whole reframing and finding positive and grateful and how can we change the meaning and context and all these things. It's like, go for the neutral mindset thing. And I use it all the time when I get days where I'm just struggling. And it's a great one, obviously, for people doing the services and things like that. Sometimes you don't know what's going to go wrong, what's going to happen, but you need to take some form of action. You can't be seen to not doing anything, because otherwise someone else might jump in and do something. So that's it. Neutral mindset.
It's great advice. And I love that, the Apollo audit checklist kind of thing. Great combination. What can you do? Could you do it? Tiny step, start to feel that progress. Brilliant, mate. Well, Rob, I want to be respectful of your time. So one of my last questions to you is, what is next for Rob Sanders? You've killed and hammered home 2024 already, from my opinion. But with 6 months left, what's the remainder of the year look like for you? Any more big goals or plans? What's coming?
So, big goals, big plans. There's quite a few. It has been a really good year, to be honest. Like I said, had some really tough years up to this one. I mentioned we struggled with kids. We've got a kid on the way. We've got a little boy on the way. So that's going to be the end of this year. Sort of dealing with that. So that'll be around October time. So I'm guessing it's going to be looking like a very tired end of the year. But very happy. So cracking on with my job, things like that, my new role. I'm back to training. I want to be competing again. I'd like to get competition in by the end of the year, but more of just for a bit of fun, just to kind of get back on the competition floor, move. That's CrossFit, if anyone wants to know. And then next year, kind of really hit it big with that.
Nice.
Business wise, work wise, obviously I have got the resilience coaching job that I do with Bristol City Football Academy, where I work with their young adults on the sort of successes and stresses of professional sport, for in their case for sort of professional football,
Yeah.
and helping people sort of cope with all of that around it, whether it's they're still on the team and they're just pushing for that next level, or they might be struggling around mental health and the mindset because they do have to go out on loan and live with foster families and all these different things. So it can be quite taxing on them at such a young age, or it could be they're getting kicked out of the system, and how they're going to then cope with that next kind of stage. So I'd like to potentially push a little bit more of that as well. So I'd say busy. It's going to be a busy end of the year, but the biggest one is obviously the baby. That's number one. And when your career and sort of just putting everything into that.
Amazing, mate. Amazing. And you know, we're like nearly 90 minutes into this podcast, and I think there's lots of parts to this. There's going to be parts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's so many things we've still got to talk about. But last question for today, then. You are starting to be a bit more active on social media again. Where is the best place for people to come to find you and to connect with you?
Instagram, I'd say. That's probably the main thing I use. I'm sure you'll put my tag in. So it's like Robert_C_Sanders. Don't ask me why I put that one in. It's a long one, but I think it's quite easy to remember. So yeah, Instagram's the main one, just because that's where I spend most of my time uploading videos and stuff like that. And it's a mix normally at the moment just of fitness and kind of life. And I'm sure at some point I will put a bit more on around the mindset and the resilience work that I'm doing. You just got to be a bit careful with what you put on with that one in terms of who I'm working with and stuff like that. But yeah, that's where you can find me, and come and hit me up, ask me some questions, because as you'll found out through this, I like to waffle. And as Davey said, there's lots of things we could have gone in and gone down, and I could have bored the hell out of people with different tools and techniques and stuff like that. But hit me up, because I'm more than happy to share them with people, as sharing's caring, as they say.
They do say that. And yeah, so much more to come, mate. And you're already a regular feature on this podcast through me, and now you're actually here, which is amazing. So yeah, we'll get the next one booked in the diary, because I know you're a busy guy. But apart from that, Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me on, finally making it on after all my my mentions and things like that. So hopefully I've done your listeners and the people that mentioned me proud. Keep going, and from me to all the introverts, just take some action. Just get out there, give it a go, and I'm sure you can create and do anything you want to. But thanks for having me.
No, the pleasure's all mine, mate. Seriously, you're my brother. I'm proud of you. This has been, such an amazing conversation. For everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, remember, your introversion isn't the thing that will hold you back. It is the thing that will catapult you towards your greatest self. Until next time, stay unstoppable.